Greetings, citizens, and thanks for tuning in to Nindie Nation. I'm Jeff, and today on episode 197, we've got a bunch of indie games to check out, all of which are releasing on the Nintendo Switch eShop this week. If you dig these weekly rundowns, toss us a like, subscribe for more, and let us know in the comments or on Discord which of the following games you're most looking forward to. These are the 15 new notable Nindies hitting the Nintendo Switch through Sunday, November 19th. But first, a quick detour to touch on a neglected Nindie because somehow one of my most anticipated Nindies of 2023 just kinda dropped out of nowhere last week. And let me tell ya, this one delivers. When I was sent a code by Freedom Games, I went through a roller coaster of emotions.
Wait, 9 Years of Shadows is finally coming to the Switch? It's out now? Where was it on the eShop?
Why aren't they marketing this?
And I've still yet to understand. But nevertheless, citizens, I'm nearing the end of my adventure with this game, and I am absolutely in love. 9 Years of Shadows is the first release by Mexico-based Halberd Studios, and it features some of the most gorgeous artwork I've ever seen. Everything from the detailed character models, to the striking colors and environments, to the smooth gradient effects of the interface, all of it is a feast for the eyes, and the soundtrack is every bit as good, with a mix of orchestrated jazz tunes and down-tempo beats and honestly, I kinda wish I was playing it now instead of writing this. The game is most easily described as a Metroidvania, but it's much more linear and focused of an experience, so structurally I'd compare it more to Iconoclast's Owlboy and Foregone because you do progress as you would in a Metroidvania, but the game guides you on a golden path, frequently opening up to let you explore and find secrets as you seek to bring color back to this infested world. It's got this really interesting life system that definitely took a while to get a hang of, but I really like it. Your magic powers share the same energy bar as your health, and you can replenish it by attacking enemies or by hugging your little magical bear friend, but only when the bar is empty. When the bar is empty, one hit will kill you, so you have to stay cognizant of its state at all times. When it depletes, you get a little 1-second minigame to time a reload, but if you miss it, you need to find a spot to stand still and hug your bear friend, similar to how you would heal in Hollow Knight. It basically means that as long as you can master this mechanic, you have infinite life, but the game knows that and compensates accordingly. The combat is hacky and slashy, with lots of backstepping and timing of simple combos, and it works well, but it's nothing you haven't seen before. Now, I have heard that there's some late-game BS that frustrated a lot of reviewers, so I'm still keeping my eyes peeled for that, and reviews from the game's PC release noted some performance issues, but they're minimal at most on the Switch, so I wouldn't worry about it. Otherwise, I'm thrilled with this game, and it's exactly what I was on the hunt for. If it sounds like a good time to you too, 9 Years of Shadows comes highly recommended, and you can check it out for $19.99. On to the new releases. On Monday the 13th, Vancouver-based Cheesemaster Games gets the week started with Spirit Tea for $17.99. It's a cute little slice-of-life adventure that seems to be inspired by Earthbound and Stardew Valley. You play as a boy in a sleepy town who makes magical tea that lets him speak with his cat's spirit. The spirit tells you that people have stopped worshipping spirits in the town and that they're starting to cause problems. So it's up to you to talk with the townspeople, fix what's ailing them, make friends, cook, craft, and all of that kind of stuff, and make them all believers once again. It's not my cup of tea,
Pun intended.
but there is a demo available if it seems up your alley, and you just want to give it a go, kick the tires a bit before committing further. Moving on to Tuesday the 14th, we've got 3 new games up for grabs, and the first is KarmaZoo. It's developed in France by Pasta Games, who has a great track record with titles like Pix the Cat and Pang Adventures on Switch, and Pac-Man Party Royale and Rayman Mini on Apple Arcade. Now, KarmaZoo is definitely a
Zany multiplayer party game with a gimmick!
but that gimmick, well, I'll let them describe it.
KarmaZoo is about helping people, working together, and finding bliss and cooperation.
Playing locally with up to 8 players or online via crossplay with up to 10, everyone selects an animal and are dropped into a level with objectives to complete by combining the unique abilities given to each animal. You might string lights together or shine a light for others to see, or even sacrifice yourself to make your tombstone a bridge, and it all looks clever and fun. Given the studio's history and the game's all-ages approach, I'm pretty optimistic about this game, so if you're looking for something like this, it comes available via the Maniacs at Devolver Digital for $9.99. As mentioned last week, Astral Ascent is one of the last Nindies with a 2023 release date that I'm super hyped for. And considering the highly rated early access version of this game, I've been following it for well over a year now. It takes place in a modern mythical world where 4 characters are trapped in a prison which is guarded by 12 zodiac gods. Using the characters' unique abilities and playstyles, you rampage through 4 biomes and one by one take out the gods, unlocking new abilities and getting stronger with every run. As you can probably tell, that means that Astral Ascent is a fast-paced 2D action game with procedurally generated levels, roguelike mechanics, and RPG elements! And I swear, I love every single thing that I've read, seen, or heard about this game. It's developed by Hibernian Studios, who started the project in 2019 following the release of their first game, Dark Devotion, and the soundtrack is composed by Dale North, who is one of my favorites, having composed the soundtracks for games like Dreamscaper and Sparklight. I've heard the game is pretty tough, but that the 2-player co-op is some of the best the genre has to offer, and really helps to offset the challenge. Have you heard enough? I've heard enough. I'll check the reviews to make sure the Switch version doesn't have any wonky performance issues, but otherwise, I'm very excited to throw $25 at MP2 Games as soon as Astral Ascent releases. But we've got one more game before moving on to Wednesday, and it's yet another trifecta, but of a completely different kind. Rogue Glitch Ultra is an action platformer where you and up to 3 others, online or off, are thrust into a world full of glitches and weird pixelated monster things. You make your way to each stage's exit while defeating enemies via 2D twin-stick combat, and collect whatever you can to unlock more characters, weapons, abilities, and upgrades. In fact, now that I think of it, we've got something unique here, gang. That's right, because Rogue Glitch Ultra also happens to be a
Zany multiplayer party game with a gimmick!
where that gimmick is procedurally generated levels, roguelike mechanics, and RPG elements! Whoa, I might have ripped a hole in the space-time continuum with that one. It looks like a retro precision platformer, but the more I dug in, the more I found a fast, fluid multiplayer action game. Weird, right? Now, it can also be played solo, so don't let that deter you if you like what you see, and it does have very positive reviews on Steam too. It's developed by Lino Slauschek and releases by way of Rarebyte for $11.99. And we've got a couple of games to check out this Wednesday, but I've gotta admit, I kind of feel bad for this next one.
A grim, dark Metroidvania
Or non-linear action exploration, if you will.
with religious horror, gothic gore, impressive pixel art, and punishing Souls-like combat.
Makes up, well, Blasphemous 2. But it also makes up The Last Faith by Kumi Souls Games. It's almost as if the team played the original Blasphemous and wanted to try their hand at making a similar game with even better artwork and more of a focus on movement and platforming. But then again, that's exactly what the Game Kitchen did with Blasphemous 2 as well. Either way, the game looks great and previews have been glowing, so I guess if you've already played Blasphemous 2 or you're just into these gory gothic games with super challenging action, PlayStack has it waiting for you this Wednesday for $24.99. And with so many games to cover each week, one of my most important jobs is to identify what makes a game stand out. Sometimes it's hard, as we just learned with The Last Faith, but other times, developers like Radioactive Dreams just get right out there and tell me what makes Turbo Shell stand out. It's a fast-paced precision platformer, so your goal is to reach the targets as quickly as possible, but instead of running and jumping, you have the ability to push or pull yourself as if you had a grappling hook and a reverse grappling hook?
A repelling hook?
Is that a thing?
Anyways, now, this isn't the first time we've seen this idea in action. Back in 2021, I adored a little game called Super Magbot, but that one was slower paced and more of a puzzle platformer, whereas this week's Turbo Shell is all about speed. There is a demo available, so if you're interested, I encourage you to check it out, because it's just unique enough that it might win some of you over. If you give it a shot and decide you want more, you can grab the full game for $11.99. We start things off on Thursday with the game that ended last week's episode. As I mentioned, There Is No Light was looking like a solid isometric action RPG. Then I grabbed some more footage when putting the video together, and that was when I saw just how gruesome this game is. It still looks pretty sick though. Zelart is a new studio based out of Russia, and their game takes place in a world that's been destroyed by a global catastrophe, sending everyone to live deep underground. Over time, they begin to worship some evil god that every few years happens to reach its massive hand down into the underground to steal a child for reasons. Well, the game starts with that hand thing taking your kid, and it's got you all kinds of
Oh, hell no.
which, for some reason, maybe because I'm a dad, makes the incredibly gory violence a little more understandable. What I didn't know about the game is that there's an intricate branching narrative that lets you have a lot of say over how the story progresses. And while we've seen a lot of games that look like this, with Eldest Souls and Morbid immediately coming to mind, the combat in There Is No Life seems much, much faster. In fact, the more I learn about this game, the more interested I get. And Hype Train Digital certainly has a knack for finding hidden gems. So, especially with a 20% discount releasing for $15.99, I just might be giving this one a shot. Okay, gonna do my best with this next one. I was about to say,
This is a side-scrolling action JRPG.
but then I read more about Astlibra Revision, then I read about the developer KarmaZoo, then I read about the reviews and the community behind the game, and, well, I think I need to play this one. Okay, so about 15 years ago, a Japanese developer named KarmaZoo started developing a game in his free time that blended his love for JRPGs and character action games. For over 5 years, people could freely play Astlibra on PC and provide feedback, which was regularly put into patches. Once the game was complete, KarmaZoo received so many offers for publishing and Game of the Year awards from indie outlets in Japan that he decided to put about 18 months into giving the game a fresh coat of paint. And that's what's releasing this week for $25. Among the changes, he replaced all of the stock graphics by commissioning artwork from Shigetaki, who is known as the primary artist for Vanillaware in games like Odin Sphere, Demon's Crown, and 13 Sentinels, so you probably know his work. So far on Steam, this game has received the coveted 96% overwhelmingly positive review and delivers between 30 to 60 hours of fast-paced 2D action with 6 difficulty modes, a lengthy post-game, 4 character classes, each with their own slew of RPG systems to grind out, and a branching story that, while reviews frequently mention it has a bit of horny teenager flair, everyone says they're hesitant to explain anything beyond
Hero gets revenge after his town was destroyed.
because of just how many awesome twists and turns the story takes. Like really, everywhere I go on the internet, Steam reviews, Reddit, Metacritic, you name it, every page is littered with people saying,
This is one of the best games ever made in this genre.
so I think I gotta try it out. Has anyone ever played the free version? On Steam, there's a demo that gives you the first 2 hours of the game, as well as a chunk of a late game area so you can see how the skills and weapons develop over time. And that's really actually pretty smart, you know? Yeah, so I wasn't sure about Astlibra at first, but now that I'm seeing it's a beloved passion project from a solo developer with help from Vanillaware and critical acclaim across the board, I think I'm gonna buy it. What about you? Next up is a quick one, but in my opinion, Until the Last Bullet is like the epitome of so bad it's good. Forever Entertainment brings us a zombie shooter that blends full motion video to create a unique mashup of usually pretty bad genres. You play as Billy, who roams the hallways of an abandoned factory that has turned everyone into monsters, and the rail shooter gameplay is constantly interrupted with B-movie level clips that look awesome in the worst kind of way. It releases for $9.99 and, in my opinion, seems like a great game to maybe stream or just hang out and play with friends while having drinks. And the game I went into this week the most excited about is without a doubt Prison City. It's developed by Programmancer in tandem with Retroware and showed me that I wasn't the only one who loved the NES games Power Blade and Shatterhand, because that's exactly what this game is riffing off of. Like Cyber Shadow and Ninja Gaiden, or Shovel Knight and DuckTales, Prison City is an 8-bit action platformer that takes place in the far-flung future of 1997, where Detroit has been turned into a mega prison. I love how the game actually progresses through areas of the city, which in turn makes the city a major part of the game's environmental storytelling. You get a mix of melee and ranged weapons, as well as grappling hooks and all kinds of abilities you can find if you happen to look in every nook and cranny during your adventure. They also added several difficulty and accessibility options, including a boss rush mode, so it should be a reasonable challenge for anyone and offer plenty of replayability. Toss in a load of 80s and 90s pop culture references, and I am way more than sold. So for $16.99, Prison City is looking like one of the next great retro throwbacks. On Rusty Trails is another pretty promising game dropping this week, but having released several years ago on other platforms, we already know that people seem to like it. Developed by Black Pants Studios and their first release on the Switch, On Rusty Trails is a fast-paced action platformer where the gimmick is that you're a little robot who can change its appearance at will. The world is filled with traps, and depending on the appearance you take, some of the traps will turn into your only path forward, as they may flip up to help you wall run, or jump high, or grapple onto, and so on. It's got this really cool, otherworldly, industrial tone that blends colorful sci-fi blobs of characters with a rundown factory as the backdrop, and it really helps make all of the signs you're looking for much easier to read. It hits the eShop for $14.99, and while I haven't played it for myself, reviews suggest that it's a great pick if you want a puzzle platformer that trades the single-screen approach we usually see to something that resembles much more of a cohesive adventure. And we're going to play a little game with the last title of this week's Big Thursday drop, and it's probably going to blow up in my face, because Dolores Entertainment releases a little game called Low Story, and while I haven't played it yet, I did receive a code and plan to jump into it before this episode goes live. So future Jeff, please fill in the following blanks. Low Story is a 2.5D adventure that can be wrapped up within a couple of hours, and follows Low, who was thrown out a window, lost his gear, and is on the run from whatever it was that threw him out the window. I do like the approach and have found that since I've been playing it,
Insert impressions here.
and here's a sentence about something unique the game does that I found enjoyable. Here's a little note or caveat about something that I noticed that might get on some of your nerves. Given the game's scope, $7.99 might be a bit too much for some of you, but I always welcome short and sweet experiences, so now I'll put some text on the screen that tells you who I think would enjoy this game. The first of two titles, releasing on Friday the 17th, is a puzzle-based adventure that is just about as indie can be. The Forest Quartet is the kind of game that you're gonna know right away if you want to play, and those who did last year on PlayStation found it to be a great, satisfying, feel-good way to spend a couple hours. Developed by Mads and Friends and published by Bedtime Digital for $10, the Forest Quartet has you playing as Nina, the singer in a jazz quartet who unexpectedly passed away. Mixing narrative with 3D puzzle gameplay, you guide Nina's spirit through the forest to find out what her bandmates have been up to since her passing, and then help them come to terms with the sudden loss of their friend. Reviews were basically split between,
Ew, I don't like these kinds of games.
which in that case, why are you reviewing it? And then a lot of praise for the bittersweet story that left players feeling hopeful and fulfilled. See what I mean? Right now, you're either totally uninterested, or you're probably already putting it on your wish list. And last up for the week is once again Giuliano Lima and Light Up teaming up with Radaleka Games to bring Runik to the Switch for $4.99. Like most of his charming 2D action platformers, here you'll find a fun, simple game that doesn't overstay its welcome, but this time around, instead of being a level-based structure, it's a mini action RPG taking place in one large world. You play as a Viking equipped with rocks to throw and an axe for melee combat, and you'll explore a Norse mythology-filled world on your quest to seek Odin's help in fulfilling a prophecy. I haven't played this one, but like I said last week, I always tend to enjoy Light Up's games, so again, if you're looking for a fun little romp that'll last you a weekend for only $5, Runik should fit the bill nicely. Cue the outro! Wow, it has been a long time since we've had this big of an episode, but there was just too much good stuff to cover this week, and that's a good problem to have. 9 Years of Shadows has absolutely captivated me as I'm nearing the game's end, but going forward, I think it's Prison City and Astlibra that have my attention the most this week. Are you feeling any of this week's releases? Maybe The Lost Faith for some gruesome Souls-like action, KarmaZoo for the exact opposite, or maybe Until the Last Bullet because it looks like a hilarious mess. Let me know down in the comments because there is a lot to consider this week. Next week will be much slower as we head into the Thanksgiving holiday, but I am interested in Talomir 2's dungeon-crawling witchcrafty antics, and Alina of the Arena seems like a pretty promising roguelike deck builder. But we'll have to wait until next time to discuss those, because citizens, we're all done for today. Thanks so much for watching, liking, subscribing, and sharing Nindie Nation with others. Until next week, I'm Jeff. This has been Nindie Nation episode 197, and remember, no matter what type of game you're looking for, Nindie Nation will be right here to help you find just the thing to keep your Joy-Cons synced.